Imagine living in a place where your nearest neighbor is 20 miles away. Winter lasts 6 months, and you might have more cows or moose than people. Sounds crazy, right? But that's the reality in some parts of America. Despite having 330 million people, half the country is practically empty. But why? Is it the brutal winters, the middle-of-nowhere isolation, or something even stranger? Today, we're counting down 10 of the emptiest states in America. And trust me, some of these reasons will blow your mind. Which of these states would you survive in? Let's find out. Number 10. New Hampshire. New Hampshire, a state that barely feels populated despite having 1.37 million residents. That might sound like a decent number, but here's the twist. New Hampshire is twice the size of Puerto Rico and still has half the population. For context, New York City alone has 8.5 million people crammed into just 302 square miles, while New Hampshire stretches over 9,349 square miles with barely anyone around. That means the state has a population density of 147 people per square mile, compared to New York City's 27,000 per square mile. Big difference, huh? Now, why is New Hampshire so empty? First off, there are no major cities. The largest, Manchester, has a tiny 115,000 residents, which is about the same size as a small Los Angeles neighborhood. Compare that to Boston, just an hour away, which has nearly 700,000 residents, and you'll see why many New Hampshire residents commute there instead of staying local. Then, there's the weather. Oh boy, the weather. If you love blizzards, ice storms, and temperatures dropping below -20 degrees Fahrenheit or -29 degrees Celsius in winter, then sure, New Hampshire is perfect. But for most people, that's a big no thanks. The state sees an average of 68 inches of snow per year, nearly twice the national average. And when summer finally rolls around, it lasts about 3 months before the cold starts creeping back in. But despite the emptiness, New Hampshire has some perks. It's one of only 9 states with no income tax, and it ranks number 2 in the US for safety. So, while it's not exactly a happening place, at least you won't have to worry about crime while you shovel another foot of snow off your driveway. Number 9. Maine. Maine. And here's a wild fact for you. There are more moose in Maine than people in some of its towns. With 1.36 million residents spread across a massive 35,385 square miles, this state is practically empty. That's twice the size of South Korea, which has 52 million people, yet Maine can't even break 1.5 million. The biggest reason why Maine is so empty? Winter. It's brutal. Imagine waking up to -20 degrees Fahrenheit, -28 degrees Celsius, temperatures, 6-foot snowdrifts, and wind chills that make you feel like you're on a Mount Everest expedition. This state gets an average of 80 to 110 inches of snow per year, with some places getting buried under 130-plus inches. That's more than double what Chicago gets. If you're not a fan of ice fishing, snowmobiling, or scraping frost off your windshield for 6 months straight, then Maine is a hard pass. Economically, it's also a tough place to live. The state's economy is heavily dependent on lobster fishing, blueberries, and tourism. But job opportunities outside those industries? Not great. The median household income in Maine is around $64,000, about $9,000 less than the national average. And let's not even talk about property taxes. They're among the highest in the country. But if you love the outdoors, Maine is paradise. It's 90% covered in forest, making it the most forested state in the US. And let's not forget Acadia National Park, which attracts over 4 million visitors a year, even though most of the state remains eerily empty. So while Maine may not be the ideal place to build a bustling career, at least you'll have more moose, trees, and lobster rolls than traffic jams. Number 8. Rhode Island. Rhode Island is an interesting case. It's the smallest state in America, covering just 1,214 square miles. That's literally smaller than Los Angeles County. And yet, despite its compact size, it still has one of the lowest populations in the country, with only 1.09 million residents. That means you could fit Rhode Island into Texas over 221 times, but Texas has 30 times more people. So what's keeping people away? For starters, cost of living. Despite its small-town vibe, Rhode Island has one of the highest costs of living in the U.S. The median home price here is around $430,000, and that's 50% higher than the national average. Rent isn't cheap either. Expect to pay $2,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment in places like Providence. That's almost as much as Boston, but without the big city job opportunities. Speaking of jobs, Rhode Island's economy isn't exactly booming. While industries like marine trades, healthcare, and education provide decent employment, the state has struggled with one of the highest unemployment rates in New England. At 3.8% in recent years, it's consistently higher than the national average. Another issue? Weather. Despite being near the ocean, Rhode Island gets hit with freezing winters and hot, humid summers. Winter temperatures regularly dip to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 12 degrees Celsius, and summer humidity can make 85 degrees Fahrenheit, 29 degrees Celsius feel unbearable. Plus, hurricanes. Rhode Island gets hit hard. Hurricane Sandy caused over $40 million in damages in this tiny state. So, while Rhode Island might be home to beautiful coastal views, rich history, and the best clam chowder in America, most people just pass through on their way to bigger places like Boston or New York. That's why it remains one of America's smallest and emptiest states. Number 7. Montana. Montana is the exact opposite of Rhode Island. It's absolutely massive, 147,000 square miles, making it the fourth largest state in the U.S. But here's the crazy part. Despite its size, only 1.08 million people live here. That's a population density of just 7.3 people per square mile, one of the lowest in the country. In comparison, New Jersey squeezes 9.2 million people into an area 90 times smaller than Montana. So why is Montana so empty? Well, a big reason is geography. The state is covered in mountains, forests, and open plains, making large-scale development nearly impossible. Sure, it's stunningly beautiful, but that doesn't help when you need grocery stores, hospitals, or job opportunities. Some small towns in Montana are literally 100 miles away from the nearest Walmart. Another challenge? Brutal winters. Montana gets one of the longest and harshest winters in the U.S., with temperatures dropping to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 40 degrees Celsius in the coldest months. Snowstorms are common, and in some areas, you can expect up to 300 inches of snow per year. That's more than twice what Chicago gets. Economically, Montana relies on agriculture, mining, and tourism. But outside of those industries, jobs are scarce. The average salary is $52,000, which is 20% lower than the U.S. average. If you're not into farming, ranching, or running a hunting lodge, finding a high-paying job can be tough. But here's the catch. Despite its emptiness, Montana's real estate market is booming. Thanks to people escaping big cities, home prices have surged by over 50% in the past 5 years. The average home now costs $440,000, making it hard for locals to afford living here. So while Montana offers breathtaking landscapes and endless outdoor adventures, it's just too remote, too cold, and too expensive for most people to settle down. Number 6. Delaware. Delaware might be famous for being the first state to join the U.S., but these days, it feels like no one even remembers it exists. With just 989,000 people, it's the 6th least populated state. And honestly, most people probably can't even find it on a map. It's tiny. Just 1,949 square miles, which means you could drive across the entire state in under an hour. So why isn't Delaware growing faster? Well, for starters, there's not much to do. The biggest city, Wilmington, has only 70,000 residents, which is barely bigger than a college town. Outside of that, it's mostly small towns, farmland, and beaches. If you're looking for nightlife, skyscrapers, or entertainment hubs, Delaware just isn't the place. Another issue? It's expensive. While there's no state sales tax, which sounds great, the cost of housing has skyrocketed. The median home price in Delaware is now $385,000, and rent prices have jumped by 20% in the last 5 years. That's a lot, especially when the average salary here is only $60,000. Then there's the economy. While Delaware is home to many big corporations, thanks to its business-friendly tax laws, most of those jobs aren't actually in Delaware. Many workers commute to nearby Philadelphia, Baltimore, or even Washington, D.C. instead of living in-state. That's why Delaware has one of the highest rates of outbound migration, with thousands of people moving to Florida, Texas, or even North Carolina for better job opportunities and lower living costs. And let's talk about climate issues. Delaware is one of the fastest sinking states in the U.S. due to rising sea levels. More than 15% of its land is considered high risk for flooding, and some scientists predict that parts of the state could be underwater in the next 50 years. Yikes! So while Delaware may have beautiful beaches and some of the lowest taxes, it's still one of the most forgotten and underwhelming states in America. No wonder so few people live here. Number 5. South Dakota. South Dakota, a state so empty that cows outnumber humans by almost 5 to 1. Yep, you heard that right. While only 886,000 people live here, there are about 3.7 million cows roaming across the state. That means for every person, there are nearly 5 cows hanging out in the vast open fields of South Dakota. So, why is it so empty? Well, for starters, it's huge, covering 77,116 square miles. That's about the same size as all of New England combined. Yet, its population is smaller than San Francisco. The problem? There's just not much here. The biggest city, Sioux Falls, has only 213,000 residents, and after that, the numbers drop drastically. The second largest city, Rapid City, has just 77,000 people, and most towns have fewer than 5,000 residents. It's the definition of middle of nowhere. Weather? Brutal. South Dakota experiences both extreme heat and extreme cold. Summers hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius, while winters drop to -30 degrees Fahrenheit, -34 degrees Celsius. And if you love blizzards, South Dakota gets over 40 inches of snow per year, sometimes seeing 10-foot snowdrifts that make roads completely impassable. The economy? It's mainly agriculture and tourism, with places like Mount Rushmore drawing in 3 million visitors per year, but that's about it. Jobs are scarce outside farming, and salaries are below the national average, with a median household income of $66,000. Despite all this, South Dakota is one of the most tax-friendly states, with no state income tax and a low cost of living. But let's be real. If you're not into farming, small-town life, or dealing with extreme weather, it's easy to see why people aren't flocking to South Dakota. It's quiet, it's rural, and unless you love wide-open spaces, you might find yourself wondering, where is everyone? Number 4. North Dakota. South Dakota was empty. North Dakota is even worse. Despite covering 70,704 square miles, bigger than England, only 779,000 people live here. That makes it the 4th least populated state. And here's a crazy fact. It's also America's least visited state. That's right. With just 22 million visitors per year, fewer people come here than Disney World gets in a single year. So, why is North Dakota so empty? First, the winters are unbearable. This state holds the record for some of the coldest temperatures ever recorded in the U.S. A bone-chilling -60 degrees Fahrenheit, -51 degrees Celsius was once reported here. Snowfall can exceed 50 inches per year, and with winds sweeping across the flat plains, blizzards can last for days, shutting everything down. Next, let's talk about the economy. North Dakota is known for oil production, which boomed in the early 2010s. But when oil prices dropped, so did job opportunities. The median household income here is about $68,000, which isn't bad, but many people still struggle due to the high cost of housing in oil boom towns. What about cities? Fargo, the largest city, has 135,000 residents, which is about the size of a small neighborhood in Los Angeles. Other than that, the state is mostly farmland and small towns where everyone knows everyone. There's a joke that says, if you move to North Dakota, expect to make friends quickly, because there aren't many people to meet. On the bright side, North Dakota has one of the lowest crime rates in America and is considered one of the best places to raise a family. But let's be honest, it takes a special kind of person to handle -40 degree Fahrenheit winters, empty highways, and living miles away from civilization. It's no wonder why so many people leave North Dakota as soon as they can. Number 3. Alaska. Alaska is mind-blowingly massive. It's bigger than Texas, California, and Montana combined, covering 663,268 square miles. Yet, despite all that space, only 733,000 people live here. That means for every square mile, there's just one person, compared to New Jersey, which has 1,200 people per square mile. Now, let's talk about why Alaska is so empty. First and foremost, the cold. Alaska has some of the harshest winters on Earth, with temperatures dropping as low as -80 degrees Fahrenheit or -62 degrees Celsius in some areas. In places like Barrow, the sun disappears for 2 months straight in the winter. Imagine waking up, going to bed, and never seeing daylight for weeks. On the flip side, summer can have 24 hours of sunlight, which sounds cool, until you realize it messes with your sleep schedule completely. Another issue? Isolation. Most of Alaska isn't connected by roads. In fact, only 20% of the state is accessible by car. The rest? You'll need a plane, boat, or snowmobile to get anywhere. Groceries? Expensive. A gallon of milk in remote towns can cost $10, and fresh fruit? Forget about it. Economically, Alaska has a strong oil, fishing, and tourism industry, but jobs are limited outside those fields. The average salary is $75,000, but the cost of living is 35% higher than the national average. That's why the state literally pays people to live there through the Permanent Fund dividend, which gives every resident a yearly check, averaging $1,000 to $2,000, just for staying in Alaska. Despite all this, Alaska has some of the most breathtaking landscapes on Earth. It's home to Denali, the tallest mountain in North America, and has over 100,000 glaciers. But let's be honest, unless you love extreme cold, isolation, and the occasional grizzly bear in your backyard, it's easy to see why most Americans don't want to live in Alaska. Number 2, Vermont. Vermont, and let's be honest, it's one of those states that people tend to forget even exists. Despite being beautiful, peaceful, and famous for its maple syrup, only 643,000 people live here. That makes Vermont the second least populated state in the country, and here's a wild fact. More people live in Portland, Oregon, 652,000, than the entire state of Vermont. So why is Vermont so empty? Well, for starters, there's just not much going on here. The biggest city, Burlington, has a population of just 45,000 people. That's smaller than most college campuses. The state is mostly made up of small rural towns, and while that's charming for some, it means no big industries, no major business hubs, and not much in the way of entertainment or nightlife. Then there's the brutal winter. Vermont is one of the snowiest states in America, getting an average of 90 inches of snow per year. That's twice as much as Chicago. Temperatures regularly drop below -10 degrees Fahrenheit, and blizzards are common. Not exactly a winter wonderland when you have to shovel your car out of 3 feet of snow just to get to work. Speaking of work, Vermont's job market isn't great. The economy is mainly based on agriculture, tourism, and small businesses, but there are very few high-paying jobs. The median household income is around $70,000, which isn't bad, but when you compare that to the high cost of living, especially for housing, it's no surprise that more people leave Vermont than move in. One of the biggest reasons Vermont stays so empty? It's old. The state has one of the oldest populations in the US, with a median age of 43.1 years. Young people often leave for better job opportunities in Boston or New York, leaving Vermont full of retirees. So, while it's a great place for skiing, maple syrup, and stunning fall foliage, Vermont remains one of America's most overlooked and underpopulated states. Number 1, Wyoming. Wyoming, the emptiest state in America. With just 576,000 people, Wyoming has fewer residents than Washington, D.C. And get this, there are more people living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 577,000, than in the entire state of Wyoming. So, why does no one live in Wyoming? First, it's huge. Wyoming covers 97,813 square miles, making it the 10th largest state, yet it has the smallest population. That means only 6 people per square mile. If you're looking for wide open spaces and zero neighbors, this is the place for you. But for most people, that much emptiness is a little unsettling. The weather is another big reason people stay away. Winters here are brutal, with temperatures dropping to -40 degrees Fahrenheit or -40 degrees Celsius in some areas. Heavy snow, ice storms, and 60-mile-per-hour winds make daily life tough, especially in rural areas where getting snowed in for days isn't uncommon. Oh, and let's not forget tornadoes. Wyoming averages 12 tornadoes per year, and some can be pretty intense. Then there's the economy. Wyoming is heavily reliant on coal, oil, and tourism. But as the demand for fossil fuels decreases, so do jobs. The median household income is $68,000, which is slightly above average. But with fewer job opportunities in limited big cities, many young people move away to states with better career prospects. Speaking of cities, Wyoming barely has any. The largest city, Cheyenne, has a population of just 65,000, and after that the numbers drop dramatically. The second largest city, Casper, has only 58,000 people, meaning Wyoming doesn't have any major urban centers at all. But it's not all bad. Wyoming has some of the most stunning landscapes in America. It's home to Yellowstone National Park, Grand Teton National Park, and some of the most beautiful mountain ranges you'll ever see. But unless you're a cowboy, rancher, or die-hard nature lover, living in Wyoming just isn't for everyone. And that's why Wyoming remains America's emptiest state.